An 8-year-old girl clutched her tattered teddy bear and cried in silence every night. No one ever heard her, until a millionaire quietly stopped his car in front of that dark, broken house and said, Lena curled into a tight ball on her thin mattress, clutching a threadbare teddy bear to her chest. The bedroom was dark, except for a sliver of moonlight sneaking through a gap in the curtains. She flinched at every creak of the old house, knowing that any sound could be him coming. In the tense silence of midnight, 8-year-old Lena could almost hear her own heartbeat thudding in her ears. Downstairs, the front door slammed. Lena's small body jerked involuntarily. He's home. Her heart pounded faster. She squeezed her eyes shut, as if not seeing might make her invisible. Footsteps, heavy and unsteady, trudged through the house. The floorboards groaned under the weight. Lena's breath caught in her throat. She knew what was coming. It happened almost every night when Gordon had too much to drink. The door to Lena's bedroom flew open with a bang, hitting the wall. Lena bit back a yelp, scrambling to sit up straight on the bed. Gordon's silhouette loomed in the doorway, swaying slightly. The sharp smell of whiskey wafted into the room ahead of him. So, you thought you could hide from me, huh? Gordon slurred, his voice low and dangerous. He stepped inside, letting the door stand ajar. Lena trembled and shook her head frantically. I'm not hiding, Daddy, she whispered, barely audible. She tried to make herself small, pressing back against the headboard. Her teddy bear was clutched so tightly to her chest that the stuffing felt like a rock against her ribs. Gordon's eyes narrowed at the sight of the toy. Didn't I tell you you're too old for that stupid bear? He spat. In 2 quick strides, he was at her bedside. Lena's stomach churned with dread. She had no time to react as Gordon snatched the plush toy from her arms. Please, Daddy. No, Lena pleaded softly, reaching out in vain. But Gordon tossed the teddy bear across the small room. It hit the wall and landed in a dark corner. Lena's eyes followed it, her lip quivering. Tears threatened, but she knew better than to cry out loud. Crying only made him angrier. Gordon's breath reeked of alcohol as he loomed over her. What did I say about crying, he growled, raising a calloused hand. Even in the dim light, Lena could see the anger twisting his features. She squeezed her eyes shut a second before the first stinging slap landed across her cheek. The impact knocked her sideways. Her cheek burned hot, but she made no sound. She caught herself on her hands, the mattress springs squealing beneath her slight weight. In the back of her mind, Lena repeated the silent mantra that sometimes helped her get through these moments. It'll be over soon. It'll be over soon. You think you can embarrass me at the store today? Gordon barked, words slurring together. Lena's mind raced, trying to remember what she could have done wrong. She had accompanied him to the grocery store that afternoon. Maybe she had stepped out of line or looked at someone the wrong way. She wasn't sure, but she knew better than to disagree. I'm sorry, she managed to whimper. Her face stung, and she tasted a hint of blood where the inside of her cheek had cut against her teeth. Sorry, he mocked, voice rising. You're always sorry, Lena. Sorry doesn't fix anything. His hand lashed out again, catching her on the shoulder this time. She bit down a cry, tears spilling silently down her cheeks now. The shadow of a once loving father was now a monster fueled by anger and whiskey. Gordon grabbed her arm and yanked her off the bed. Lena's knees hit the wooden floor hard. Pain shot up her legs, but before she could move, a rough fist tangled in her hair. She gasped as he jerked her head back. Hot tears rolled down her face, dropping onto the floorboards. Please, she begged, in a broken whisper. I'll be good. Her meek plea only seemed to infuriate him more. Gordon's face was contorted with rage. You think I like doing this? You think I want a brat who can't follow simple rules? Spittle flecked her cheek as he shouted. He shook her by the hair, and Lena's scalp burned. I'll do better, Lena cried softly, desperation leaking into her voice. I promise, Daddy. He sneered, finally releasing her. Lena crumpled to the floor, breathing hard and trembling. For a moment, Gordon just stood over her, chest heaving. Then he delivered a quick, sharp kick to her leg. Lena curled instinctively, a soft cry escaping her lips, despite her resolve to stay silent. Gordon pointed a finger at her, his hand unsteady. Get up and clean yourself. Don't you leave any tears on the floor, he snarled. Yes, sir, Lena whispered, swallowing back sobs. She dragged herself up, legs wobbling, and wiped at the floor with the sleeve of her pajama top to catch any stray teardrops. Her cheek and calf throbbed, but she kept her eyes down, submissive. Gordon grunted in satisfaction at her obedience. He turned and staggered towards the door. Stupid girl, he muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. At the doorway, he paused and looked back at the small, shaking figure of his daughter. For a split second, something like guilt or sorrow flickered in his eyes. But then he scowled. Don't make me come in here again tonight, he warned. He left, slamming the door behind him. Only once she heard his heavy footsteps receding down the hall did Lena allow herself to breathe again. Each inhale hurt. Her ribs felt sore where he had struck her last night. In the dim silence, Lena sank to the floor by her bed. She reached a trembling hand toward the dark corner, retrieving her discarded teddy bear. Clutching the toy tightly, she crawled back onto the mattress. Her body ached, but she tried to be as quiet as possible. In the distance, she could faintly hear Gordon cursing to himself in the other room, and then the creak of his bed as he collapsed onto it. Lena curled up on her side, holding the bear under her chin. Silent tears slid down her cheeks, dampening the pillow. She didn't dare sob aloud. Instead, she cried in complete silence, shaking in the darkness. Why? She thought desperately. Why did Daddy have to be so angry? She squeezed her eyes shut, imagining for a moment that her mother was still alive. In her memories, Mama was gentle and smelled like vanilla. Mama would sing her a lullaby when she was scared, but Mama was gone now, taken by an illness 3 years ago, and there was no one left to sing Lena to sleep or shield her from Daddy's rage. As her tears subsided into exhausted hiccups, Lena stared at the sliver of moonlight on the wall. Please, she prayed silently, though she wasn't sure who she was praying to. Please, make it stop. Let someone help me. No answer came in the quiet night, except for the lonely sound of a distant train whistle and the rustling of autumn leaves against the window. Eventually, Lena's trembling eased just enough that she drifted into a shallow, troubled sleep, the teddy bear held close, and a bruise already blooming on her cheek in the dark. Sunlight crept through the frayed edges of the curtain as morning came too soon. Lena winced as she sat up. Every movement hurt. Her cheek was tender, her shoulder stiff. Purple and blue bruises were already blooming on her pale skin. She slid off the bed gingerly, careful not to make a sound. In the next room, she could hear her father snoring loudly. Lena pulled on the longest sleeve shirt she could find to cover the marks on her arms and a pair of worn jeans. Each step made her body ache, but she gritted her teeth. School would start in an hour, and if she was late, Gordon would have one more reason to be angry. In the tiny bathroom, Lena splashed cold water on her face. The coolness soothed the sting on her cheek for a moment. She examined herself in the mirror. A faint bruise had formed on her cheekbone where Gordon's hand struck her. She tugged her dark hair forward to try to hide it, Her eyes were puffy from the night's tears, but there was nothing to be done about that. A creak from the hallway made her jump. Hurriedly, Lena wiped her face and stepped out of the bathroom. She nearly collided with Gordon, who stood bleary-eyed in the hall, hair mussed from sleep. He squinted at her. "You still here?" he grunted, voice rough. "Thought you'd be at school by now." "I'm going now," Lena replied quickly, eyes on the floor. She edged past him, heart pounding. In the mornings, Gordon was usually less volatile, especially if he hadn't started drinking yet. But Lena never knew what might set him off. He scratched his stubbled chin and narrowed his eyes at her stiff movements. "You better not go running your mouth to anyone, you hear?" Gordon said, low and menacing. He leaned down, and Lena could smell stale whiskey and sweat on his shirt. "Remember what I told you? Nobody needs to know our business." "Yes, sir," she whispered. Her small hands gripped the straps of her frayed backpack tightly. Gordon stared a moment longer, then finally stepped aside with a dismissive wave. "Get going, then. And don't come crying to me if you get in trouble at school," he muttered, as he shuffled toward the kitchen in search of coffee. Lena slipped away and grabbed a bruised apple from the counter, her meager breakfast, before stepping out the front door. The autumn air in Pennsylvania was crisp and cool, carrying the scent of dry leaves. She pulled her threadbare sweater tighter around her small frame and began the short walk to school. At Maplewood Elementary, children laughed and chased each other on the playground before the first bell. Lena kept her head down and headed straight inside. She didn't feel like playing. She rarely did anymore. Her body ached, and she was so tired. In her third-grade classroom, Miss Catherine Taylor was writing the day's math problems on the chalkboard. When Lena slipped quietly into her seat, Miss Taylor turned and offered a warm smile. "Good morning, Lena." "Good morning," Lena replied softly. She sat down, wincing as the hard chair pressed on a bruise along her thigh. She quickly straightened, hoping nobody noticed her flinch. As Miss Taylor passed out worksheets, she paused by Lena's desk. Her gaze caught the faint bruise on Lena's cheek that wasn't fully hidden by her hair. The teacher's friendly expression faltered into concern. "Are you feeling all right, Lena?" Miss Taylor asked gently. Lena's heart skipped. "Yes, ma'am. I'm okay," she lied quietly. "I just fell off my bike yesterday." Miss Taylor knelt beside her desk, lowering her voice so others wouldn't hear. "That looks like it hurt. Are you sure that's all it was?" Lena nodded quickly, keeping her eyes on her paper. "It was my fault. I'm clumsy," she murmured. Miss Taylor studied her for a moment, worry clouding her eyes. She reached out as if to brush Lena's hair aside to see better, but stopped herself. "All right. We can talk more later," she said softly. "Just remember, you can tell me anything, okay?" "Yes, Mom," Lena whispered. The teacher gave a small nod and moved on, but Lena could feel Miss Taylor's eyes lingering occasionally, watchful and unconvinced. Lena tried to focus on the math problems in front of her, but her mind was racing with anxiety. All through the day, Lena felt the weight of her teacher's concern. When the final bell rang at 3 o'clock, her heart thumped in her chest. Miss Taylor had quietly asked her before dismissal to stop by the library after school. Lena trudged to the school library, where the lights were low and the space quiet. Miss Taylor was waiting near a row of picture books, her posture gentle but concerned. "Hi, Lena. Come sit with me for a minute, please," Miss Taylor said, patting the wooden bench beside her. Lena perched on the edge of the bench, with her backpack clutched in front of her like a shield. The late afternoon sun slanted through the tall windows, casting soft light across the shelves. "You're not in any trouble," Miss Taylor assured her, noticing Lena's anxious expression. "I just want to make sure everything's okay." Lena stared down at her scuffed shoes. "Yes, Mum," she whispered. Ms. Taylor took a slow breath. "Sweetheart, I'm worried about you. That bruise on your face. And I noticed you were in pain today. I need to ask, is everything all right at home? Is someone hurting you?" The direct question hung in the air. Lena's eyes filled with tears that she tried to blink away. She shook her head quickly, her voice caught in her throat. "It's okay. You can tell me," the teacher urged softly. "If someone is hurting you, I can help." For a long moment, Lena said nothing. She wanted so badly to tell the truth. Her heart pounded with the urge to finally let it out. But she imagined her father's furious face, his threats. Fear coiled around her words and kept them locked inside. No one hurts me," Lena lied in a tiny voice. "I just fell. I'm okay." Miss Taylor exhaled, disappointment and concern on her face. "Lena, if someone is hurting you, it's not okay, and it's not your fault. You understand? There are people who can help you. I can help you." Lena bit her lip hard to stop it trembling. I know," she whispered. "But everything's fine. Really." The teacher gently rubbed Lena's back, feeling how tense she was. "All right, I won't force you. But please remember what I said. If you ever need help, you can come to me, or another grown-up you trust. We all just want you safe." Lena managed a tiny nod. The weight of Miss Taylor's kindness and worry pressed on her chest. Part of her was grateful someone cared. Another part was terrified of what might happen now. "Okay," Miss Taylor said softly, standing up. "You can head home. I'll see you tomorrow in class, all right?" "Yes, ma'am," Lena replied. As she left the library, Lena felt her stomach in knots. She was relieved to escape the conversation, yet a heavy sadness settled over her. Miss Taylor's words echoed in her mind. There are people who can help you. It's not your fault. Walking home under an overcast sky, Lena shivered in the chill breeze. What would her teacher do now? Would she call someone? The uncertainty gnawed at her. By the time she reached her house, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the yard. Lena paused on the front steps and took a shaky breath. She steeled herself, then opened the door and slipped inside, hoping desperately that tonight would be better and not another nightmare. That same evening, after Lena had left school, Ms. Taylor made a quiet, urgent phone call to Child Protective Services. As a teacher, she was required to report suspected abuse, and in her heart, she knew Lena needed help. Her voice shook as she described the bruises and Lena's frightened eyes. The next morning at Maplewood Elementary, Lena was called out of class to the principal's office. Waiting there, she found a kindly woman in a cardigan and a police officer in a brown uniform. The woman introduced herself as Ms. Cheryl Green from Child Protective Services. "We're just here to make sure you're safe, sweetheart," Ms. Green said gently. Lena sat in a small chair, hands twisting in her lap, as Ms. Green asked softly, "Can you tell us how you got that bruise, Lena?" "I fell off my bike," Lena whispered. Her heart hammered in her chest. Ms. Green and the officer exchanged a glance. "Are you sure that's what happened?" the social worker pressed, though her tone was kind. "Nobody hurt you at home." Lena's throat felt like it was closing up. Terror kept her from meeting the woman's eyes. "No, Ma'am," she said, almost inaudibly. "No one hurt me." They spoke with her a little while longer, but Lena stuck to her story. In the end, Miss Green handed her a small white card with a phone number. "If you ever need to talk, or if you don't feel safe, you can call this number any time," she said. "There will always be someone to help you, okay?" Lena nodded numbly. She couldn't even manage a thank you. After the social worker and officer left, Lena returned to class feeling sick with fear. She knew her silence hadn't convinced them. That afternoon, the CPS investigator and Officer Thompson paid an unannounced visit to Lena's house. Lena's father answered the door, surprised and immediately on edge at the sight of them. "We received a report of a possible issue," Ms. Green explained on the porch. "May we come in, Mr. Baker?" Gordon forced a thin smile and let them inside. Lena hovered near the kitchen doorway, her heart in her throat. Gordon placed a heavy hand on her shoulder as if staking claim. "Somebody's been feeding you lies," he said defensively. "Lena just had a little bike accident. She's a clumsy kid, that's all." Ms. Green kept her voice calm. "Lena, do you want to tell me again what happened?" Standing in her own living room, with her father's fingers digging into her shoulder, Lena felt even more trapped. She lowered her eyes and repeated shakily, "I fell off my bike. I'm okay." The police officer took a quick look around, small house. He didn't see any obvious signs of violence, just a worn living space and the faint smell of alcohol. Ms. Green eventually nodded, though her eyes lingered on the way Gordon's hand gripped Lena's thin shoulder. "All right. Thank you for your time, Mr. Baker. We're here if you need us." Gordon saw them out with tight-lipped politeness. The moment their car pulled away, he slammed the front door and rounded on Lena, face red with fury. "What did you tell them?" he snarled. Nothing, Daddy," Lena cried, backing up against the wall. "I didn't say anything, I swear." Gordon's eyes blazed. "They don't come unless someone was talking. You trying to get me thrown in jail, huh?" he shouted. Lena frantically shook her head. I didn't. Ms. Taylor was just worried." "Shut up," he roared. "After all I do for you, you sick the cops on me." In a rage, he unbuckled his leather belt. Lena's mouth went dry with terror. "Please." "I didn't mean—" The belt lashed through the air. Gordon brought it down with a crack across Lena's back. She screamed a high, hurt cry that she quickly smothered with her hand. "If they ever take you away," Gordon seethed, raising the belt again, "you'll have nobody. You want that? You think anyone will care about you like I do?" The belt struck again, pain exploding across her legs. Lena collapsed to the floor, sobbing into her arms. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry." He finally stopped only when his arm grew tired. Gordon loomed over his trembling daughter, chest heaving. "This is our business. No one else's. Don't you forget it." Lena lay curled on the thin carpet, tears soaking her face. Every part of her hurt. Upstairs, a curtain shifted as one neighbor across the street peeked out, drawn by the sound of shouting. But like everyone else in that quiet town, they turned away and pretended not to notice. That night, Lena huddled in her bed in agony, fresh welts on her back and thighs. She clung to her teddy bear and cried silent, hopeless tears. The people who tried to help had left, and now it was worse than ever. As the darkness closed in, Lena wondered if she would ever be saved, or if this nightmare would be her life forever. 2 days later, on a cool Saturday afternoon, Lena found a brief moment of freedom. Gordon had fallen into a heavy sleep on the couch after drinking all morning. Bruised and aching, Lena slipped quietly out the front door. She needed a breath of fresh air, a short escape from the house of hurt. A small park a few blocks away offered a patch of green with a swing set. Lena walked slowly, every step a reminder of her wounds. She wore a long-sleeved hoodie despite the mild weather, hiding the fading bruises on her arms and the tender welts on her back. At the park, a few children played under the watch of their parents. Lena kept to the edges, settling onto an empty swing. She didn't actually swing, even sitting hurt, but at least she could enjoy the crisp air and the sight of golden autumn leaves swirling in the breeze. "Hello there," came a gentle male voice. Startled, Lena looked up. An older man stood a few steps away. He had silver hair, kind blue eyes, and a warm, cautious smile. He didn't come too close, as if careful not to scare her. "Hi," Lena replied softly, gripping the swing's chains. "I'm Nathaniel. Nathaniel Grayson," he introduced himself. "I'm new in town. Well, actually, I grew up here and just moved back recently." He nodded toward the swings. "Mind if I sit?" Lena shook her head. Nathaniel settled on the end of a wooden bench nearby, giving her plenty of space. "You must be from around here," Nathaniel said kindly. "What's your name?" "Lena," she answered in a small voice. "That's a lovely name," he said. He lifted a small grocery bag he carried. "I was just about to have a snack. Would you like an apple? I have an extra." He pulled out 2 shiny red apples. Lena's stomach gave a small rumble at the sight. She hadn't eaten since breakfast. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, please." Nathaniel walked over slowly and handed her an apple. As she reached for it, her sleeve slipped back a little, revealing a yellowish bruise on her thin wrist. Nathaniel's friendly expression faltered for a split second, but he said nothing about it. Lena quickly tugged her sleeve down and murmured, "Thank you." She bit into the apple. It was crisp and sweet. For a few minutes they ate quietly. The only sounds were distant laughter of other kids and the rustle of leaves. "It's a nice day, isn't it?" Nathaniel said after a bit. Lena nodded. "Mm-hmm." She allowed herself a tiny smile. It felt odd, but nice, to sit with someone who wasn't yelling or scowling. Nathaniel gently tried to make conversation about little things, the weather, the park. Lena answered in brief monosyllables, shy but polite. He noticed she was favoring one side when she sat, as if something hurt. After a short while, Lena stood up suddenly. The sun had shifted lower. Panic sparked in her chest at how long she might have been gone. I have to go," she said abruptly. Nathaniel rose too, concerned. "Are you all right? You have somewhere you need to be?" She nodded. "My dad, he doesn't like me out long." She clutched the remaining half of her apple. "I understand." He didn't press her further, but as she took a step, Nathaniel added softly, "Lena, if you ever need anything, help or just someone to talk to, I live in the blue house on Chestnut Street, the one with the white picket fence. Do you know it?" Lena paused. She did know that house. It was only a block over from her own and had recently been fixed up, so he was the one who moved in. "I know it," she acknowledged softly. Nathaniel offered a gentle smile. "You can find me there. Any time, all right?" Lena didn't quite know how to respond. No adult had ever offered her that before. "Oh, okay," she said. He nodded. "You take care now." "Thank you for the apple," Lena whispered. "You're very welcome, Lena." She managed a timid smile before turning and hurrying away down the sidewalk. As she left, Nathaniel watched her go, heart tugged by the sight of how quickly her face had clouded with worry when she realized she needed to get home. He hadn't missed the bruise on her wrist, nor the fading discoloration on her cheek partially hidden by her hair. Standing there in the gentle autumn light, Nathaniel felt a swell of protectiveness and concern. He didn't know Lena's story, but he recognized fear when he saw it in a child's eyes. Long after Lena disappeared from view, Nathaniel remained at the park, lost in thought. Something was very wrong in that little girl's life. Of that much he was sure. And as he walked back to his blue house on Chestnut Street, he found himself silently resolving to figure out what was happening to that little girl. And if his suspicions were correct, he needed to help her before it was too late. On Monday afternoon, an uneasy Nathaniel walked into Maplewood Elementary's front office and asked to speak with Ms. Catherine Taylor. When the teacher appeared, He introduced himself quietly and explained, "I met one of your students, Lena, at the park this weekend. I'm worried about her." Ms. Taylor's expression turned somber. She invited him into a small conference room. "I'm worried about Lena too," she confessed as they sat down. Relieved to have an ally, Nathaniel nodded. "I noticed she had bruises, and the way she acted, it reminded me of—" He stopped, throat tightening at a memory of another frightened child he'd once known. He cleared it. "I have a strong suspicion she's being hurt at home." Ms. Taylor's eyes were sad, but not surprised. "I reported my suspicions to Child Protective Services on Friday. They interviewed Lena and even visited her home," she said. "But she denied everything. Without proof for her testimony, they couldn't take action." Nathaniel's stomach clenched. "So they left her there with him." The teacher's voice wavered. "Yes, and today Lena didn't come to school. Her father called to say she was sick. I'm very worried that he's keeping her home because of what happened." A heavy silence fell. Finally, Nathaniel spoke with resolve. "I want to help. I can't just stand by, Ms." Taylor gave him a grateful, anxious look. "I'm glad you met her. Maybe you can do what the rest of us haven't been able to. But please be careful. Her father, Gordon, he's unpredictable and easily angered." "I will," Nathaniel promised. As dusk approached, Nathaniel drove to the address Ms. Taylor had provided for Lena's home. The small, weather-beaten house on Sycamore Street looked quiet and dark. Summoning his courage, he walked up to the front door and knocked. After a long moment, the door opened a crack. Gordon Baker peered out, eyes wary and bloodshot. He seemed to recognize Nathaniel from somewhere. Perhaps Lena had mentioned the kind stranger, or he was simply on guard after the CPS visit. "Good evening," Nathaniel began calmly. "I'm Nathaniel Grayson, your neighbor from a street over. I'm just checking in because I heard Lena wasn't at school and I wanted to make sure she's all right." "We're fine," Gordon said gruffly, not budging the door. Nathaniel tried a friendly smile. "I met Lena at the park the other day. She's a sweet girl. I wanted to make sure everything was all right." Gordon opened the door a bit wider and stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind him. He held a beer bottle, and his stance was aggressive. "Listen, I don't know what you think you're doing, mister, but my kid is none of your concern." "I'm only concerned for her well-being," Nathaniel replied evenly, keeping his tone calm. "If there's anything you or Lena need—" "We don't need nothing from you," Gordon snapped, slurring slightly. It was clear he'd been drinking. He loomed closer, the smell of alcohol and stale sweat rolling off him. "Mind your own damn business and stay away from my daughter." Nathaniel felt a surge of anger at the man's aggressive dismissal, but he held it back. "Mr. Baker, I'm just trying to be a good neighbor." Gordon jabbed a finger at Nathaniel's chest. "A good neighbor doesn't stick his nose where it doesn't belong. You stay off my property, you hear? Next time, I won't be so friendly." Behind Gordon, through the small window beside the door, Nathaniel caught a glimpse of movement, a pale little face peeking out. Lena. Her eyes looked wide and scared before she disappeared from view, perhaps hurried away by someone or by her own fear. Nathaniel's heart clenched. He raised his hands in a placating gesture. "All right. I'm sorry to have bothered you." Gordon grunted, not moving until Nathaniel stepped off the porch. Then he practically slammed the door. Walking back to his car in the twilight, Nathaniel's hands trembled with adrenaline. He had seen Lena's face for the briefest moment. It was all the confirmation he needed that things were far from all right in that house. The fear in her eyes was unmistakable. He sat in his car for a moment, jaw tight, as daylight faded. Talking politely wasn't going to get Lena out of danger. That much was clear. Gordon Baker was on high alert now, and Nathaniel worried the man might take out his anger on Lena again that night. Nathaniel pulled out his cell phone. He dialed a number he hadn't used in a while, belonging to an old friend, a retired family court judge whom Nathaniel had known for years. If anyone knew how to navigate the legal system to rescue a child, it would be him. As the phone rang, Nathaniel glanced back at the darkened house. He whispered under his breath, a promise into the coming night. "Hang on, Lena. We're going to get you out of there." That Monday night, Lena huddled on her bed in the dark, a suitcase half filled with clothes on the floor beside her. Her father's sudden decision had come after hours of brooding and drinking following the neighbor's unwelcome visit. Gordon had burst into her room just after dinner, tossed the old suitcase at her feet and growled, "Pack your things." "We're leaving town." Lena's hands shook as she folded a threadbare dress and placed it in the suitcase. Her body still ached from the beating he'd given her on Friday, and fresh bruises from a rough grab earlier mottled her arm. Where are we going?" she dared to ask quietly. "Someplace where nosy people won't interfere," Gordon snapped from the doorway, a silhouette of anger. "Now hurry up. We're driving through the night." Tears pricked Lena's eyes as she fumbled to pack her few belongings, some clothes, her worn storybook, and her teddy bear tucked protectively at the bottom. Running away. Her heart pounded. She didn't want to leave her school, Miss Taylor, or the faint glimmer of hope that someone might save her, but she knew better than to protest out loud. Downstairs, Gordon stumbled about, tossing beer cans aside and shoving essential items into a duffel. His mind was racing with paranoia. In his view, everyone was out to get him: teachers, social workers, do-gooder neighbors. He was determined to keep control of his daughter by any means necessary. If that meant skipping town in the dead of night, so be it. Outside, the autumn night was eerily quiet. A few houses away, parked discreetly under a large oak tree, Nathaniel sat in his car with the lights off. He couldn't shake the dread that had gnawed at him since leaving Gordon's porch. After making some calls for advice, none of which yielded immediate solutions, Nathaniel decided he would personally watch over Lena's house that night. Something told him Gordon might try something drastic. Around midnight, Nathaniel's vigilance was rewarded, and not in the way he hoped. He saw the glow of headlights flicker on in the driveway. Gordon's old Chevy truck sputtered to life. Nathaniel's pulse quickened as he spotted two figures emerging from the house. Gordon, carrying a duffel bag and dragging Lena by the arm. Even in the darkness, Nathaniel could see Lena's small form resisting, her heels digging into the ground. She wasn't making a sound, perhaps too scared or in shock, but her body language was sheer terror. Gordon yanked her harshly toward the truck's passenger side. Nathaniel's jaw clenched. He didn't know exactly what Gordon intended, but it was clear he was taking Lena away, likely to disappear before authorities could intervene again. If they vanished into the night, who knew when or if Lena would be found or helped? As Gordon opened the truck door, Lena whimpered, "Daddy, please. I don't want to go." "Shut up and get in," Gordon hissed. He lifted the trembling girl and shoved her onto the seat. From his car, Nathaniel felt a surge of adrenaline and outrage. He had to act now. He reached for his phone and quickly dialed 911, whispering urgently to the dispatcher, "A child is in immediate danger. 214 Sycamore Street. Father is trying to take her by force. Hurry, please." He didn't wait for a response. Nathaniel slid his phone into his pocket and stepped out of his car, moving swiftly and silently across the shadowed lawn toward the truck. The chilly air bit at his face, but he barely noticed. Gordon was tossing his duffel into the truck bed when he sensed movement in the darkness. He spun around, eyes widening, when he recognized Nathaniel striding toward him. "You?" Gordon spat, disbelief and fury mixing on his face. "I told you to stay away." Nathaniel's heart hammered, but he forced calm into his voice. He raised his hands placatingly as he closed the distance. "Gordon, don't do this," he said firmly. "Let Lena go." Lena, still perched in the passenger seat, peered out with desperate eyes. "Mr. Grayson," she croaked, voice shaking with relief and fear at once. Gordon's face contorted. Caught in the act and desperate, he reached into the truck bed and pulled out a tire iron that gleamed in the moonlight. He brandished it at Nathaniel. "Back off. This is my kid. You got no right." Nathaniel stopped a few yards away, feet planted. Somewhere in the distance, he thought he heard the faint wail of a siren beginning to cut through the still night. Help was on the way, but they might not arrive in time. He locked eyes with Gordon. Everything in Nathaniel's life had led him to this moment. "Stop! Now!" Nathaniel shouted, his voice echoing down the quiet street. Gordon hesitated, startled by the command in that tone. His chest heaved with ragged breaths as he glared at the older man, standing defiantly between him and freedom. In the truck, Lena whimpered, tears streaming down her face. The cold night air stung her skin, but all she could feel was terror and a fragile bloom of hope that help had finally come. Gordon's momentary pause evaporated. With a furious roar, he lunged forward, swinging the tire iron. Nathaniel dodged back. Lena shrieked from the truck, "Daddy, stop!" which only enraged Gordon further. He raised the iron again, this time aiming toward the truck where Lena sat. That sight ignited something fierce in Nathaniel. He threw himself at Gordon, grappling for the weapon. They struggled by the idling truck, Gordon cursing in desperation, Nathaniel fueled by determination to protect Lena. A piercing siren cut through the night as a police cruiser screeched around the corner. Flashing red and blue lights bathed the street. "Police! Freeze!" an officer shouted, leaping out with his gun drawn. Gordon hesitated at the sudden lights and noise. In that moment, an officer tackled him hard from behind. The tire iron clattered to the pavement as Gordon went down in a heap. Two officers swarmed in. They forced Gordon's hands behind his back and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. "Get off me," he slurred, struggling weakly as they hauled him up. One officer, Officer Thompson, the same who had accompanied Ms. Green days before, stepped in front of Gordon. "Gordon Baker, you're under arrest," he said in a hard tone. "Assault, child endangerment. We'll sort it all out downtown." Gordon's protests dissolved into a string of curses as they led him to the squad car. His furious face disappeared behind the cruiser's tinted window as he was driven off into the darkness. As soon as Gordon was restrained, Lena scrambled out of the truck and ran on unsteady legs toward Nathaniel. "Mr. Grayson," she sobbed, launching herself at him. Nathaniel caught her in a protective embrace, dropping to his knees on the pavement to hold her. "It's all right," he murmured, voice raw with emotion. "You're safe now, Lena. You're safe." She clung to him with all her strength, sobbing into his shoulder. Nathaniel closed his eyes, relief and heartbreak washing over him in equal measure as he cradled the little girl. Within minutes, more flashing lights arrived, another police car, then an ambulance. A paramedic hurried over to escort Nathaniel and Lena to a waiting ambulance. Nathaniel insisted he was fine and fretted over Lena, but he kept her wrapped in his arms as they guided them to be checked out. He had never felt stronger in spirit. One of the officers approached Nathaniel and gently laid a hand on his shoulder. "We're taking him in," he said, nodding toward the police car that held Gordon. "You did real good, sir." Nathaniel looked down at the shaking child in his arms. Lena's sobs had quieted to soft hiccups. He smoothed her tangled hair with a trembling hand. "Thank you," he managed to reply to the officer, emotion thick in his throat. "Thank you for coming so fast." The young officer dipped his head. "Just glad we got here in time." Under the pulsing glow of red and blue lights, Lena was finally free of her father's grasp. As paramedics led them toward the ambulance, Nathaniel lifted Lena into his arms. She buried her face against his neck, her tears wetting his shirt. He held her close, his own eyes burning with unshed tears of relief. Evil had been stopped, and this precious child was safe at last. As they moved toward the ambulance, Nathaniel pressed a gentle kiss to Lena's forehead. "You're going to be okay," he whispered. Lena tightened her arms around him in response. She didn't have words, but in that tight hug, Nathaniel felt her gratitude and trust. Good had confronted evil on a quiet street in Pinewood that night, and good had triumphed. Gordon Baker was on his way to face justice, and Lena was wrapped securely in the arms of the man who would never let anyone hurt her again. Lena awoke in an unfamiliar bed to the soft beeping of machines and the clean smell of antiseptic. For a disorienting moment, she panicked. Her hand flailed out, searching for her teddy bear, and her heart pounded at the unknown surroundings. But then she felt a warm, steady hand clasp her small fingers. "It's okay, Lena. You're safe." The voice was gentle and deep. She turned her head on the pillow and saw Nathaniel sitting beside her hospital bed. Relief washed over her in a wave. The nightmare of the night before began to piece together in her mind. Her father dragging her into the truck, Mr. Grayson appearing, the police lights. And now, here she was, in the bright haze of a hospital room, alive and free. Nathaniel managed a tired smile when their eyes met. He looked a bit weary under the fluorescent lights, but he was very much there and very much real. "Hi," Lena croaked, her throat raw from crying. "Hi there," Nathaniel replied softly. He adjusted her blanket with his free hand. "You gave us all quite a scare, young lady." Lena's eyes suddenly filled with tears. Is my dad gone?" she whispered, voice trembling. Nathaniel's grip on her hand gently tightened. "Yes, sweetie. The police have him. He can't hurt you anymore." Her lower lip quivered. Part of her had feared that any moment her father would storm in and rip her away, that all of this was too good to be true. "He's really gone," she pressed, needing to hear it again. Nathaniel nodded. "Really gone. He won't be coming near you for a long time. Maybe never again, if I have any say." There was a protective edge in his tone that made Lena believe him. A soft knock came at the door, and a woman in a neat grey pantsuit stepped in. It was Ms. Cheryl Green from Child Protective Services. Lena stiffened, remembering how she hadn't been able to tell Ms. Green the truth before. But Ms. Green's face held a tender smile now. "Hello, Lena. Mr. Grayson." She approached the bedside. "How are you feeling, Lena?" Lena glanced at Nathaniel, then back at the social worker. "Oh, okay," she said softly. Her body still felt sore, but for the first time in forever, her heart didn't feel like a trapped bird in her chest. Ms. Green nodded gently. "You're very brave, you know that." Her gaze shifted between the child and the older man holding her hand. Lena's fingers were curled tightly around Nathaniel's, unwilling to let go. "We're going to make sure you never have to go through anything like that again." She looked to Nathaniel. "They're keeping her overnight for observation, but the doctor said she's going to be all right. A few bruised ribs, lots of bruises and dehydration, but no permanent injuries." Ms. Green exhaled, as if she'd been holding her breath waiting for that news. "Thank God," Nathaniel said quietly. He hadn't left Lena's side since they arrived at the hospital late last night. Despite the doctors fussing over his own bruises, he'd insisted on staying with her. "We'll need to arrange a safe place for Lena to go once she's discharged," Ms. Green continued. "Normally, we'd arrange a foster home right away," she said gently, noting how tightly Lena clung to Nathaniel. But given the circumstances, Mr. Grayson, if you're willing, we can place Lena with you as a foster parent for now. Lena's eyes widened hopefully. She turned to Nathaniel, and he gave her an encouraging nod. If that's what Lena wants, I'm more than willing, he said, voice thick with emotion. A tiny smile broke through Lena's tears as she nodded vigorously. I want that. Wonderful, Ms. Green said, looking relieved. We'll handle the paperwork so that Lena can go home with you when she's released. There will be a court hearing soon, but for now, she'll be in your care. Home. Lena let the word sink in. She realized she didn't even know exactly where Mr. Grayson lived, only that blue house on Chestnut Street, but the idea of staying with him felt safe. It felt right. Nathaniel gently squeezed her hand. Hear that? Tomorrow, you're coming home with me. Lena managed a tiny giggle, which made her ribs ache, but she didn't care. It sounded like the best plan in the world. When Miss Green left, Lena looked up at Nathaniel. You're really going to take care of me, she whispered, just to be sure all this was real. Nathaniel leaned closer, gently tucking her teddy bear by her side. For as long as you need, Lena, you're safe with me. I promise. Finally, Lena let her eyes drift closed, fingers still wrapped around his. The tight, anxious knot in her stomach was unwinding at last. She was safe, truly safe, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. Spring sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the county family courthouse as Lena and Nathaniel stood side by side before the judge's bench. It had been 6 months since that fateful night, and in that time, Lena's world had transformed completely. Gordon Baker had been convicted on multiple counts of child abuse and assault. He now sat in a state prison, serving a 10-year sentence. Lena had not seen him since the night he was arrested, and she hadn't wanted to. The court had terminated his parental rights, paving the way for today's proceeding, the finalization of Lena's adoption. Judge Marlowe, a kindly woman with grey hair and warm eyes, peered down at them. Lena Baker, I have reviewed the petition for your adoption. I see you'd like your name to be Lena Grayson after this. Is that correct? Lena, dressed in a new blue dress that she and Nathaniel had picked out just for this day, nodded shyly and answered in a clear voice. Yes, ma'am. Beside her, Nathaniel squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. He wore a crisp suit and couldn't stop smiling, though his eyes were moist with emotion. The judge smiled. And Mr. Nathaniel Grayson, you wish to adopt Lena as your daughter, with all the rights and responsibilities of parenthood? I do, Your Honor, Nathaniel replied, his voice steady. With all my heart. A few quiet sniffles could be heard from the small crowd of supporters seated in the courtroom. In the front row sat the many people who had helped save Lena, Ms. Taylor, Ms. Green, Officer Thompson, all beaming with pride. Judge Marlowe signed the official documents with a flourish of her pen. It is my honor and privilege to declare that the adoption is granted. Congratulations, Mr. Grayson, and congratulations to you, Lena. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness. Lena felt Nathaniel's arm wrap around her in a gentle hug. The courtroom erupted in soft cheers and applause. Ms. Taylor let out an audible, "Oh, yes!" And even the judge was smiling broadly. Nathaniel knelt to meet Lena's eyes, ignoring the happy tears slipping down his cheeks. "It's official," he whispered, cupping her face in his hands lovingly. "You're my daughter now." Lena threw her arms around his neck. "Thank you." "Dad," she whispered back, trying out the new word. It felt right. Nathaniel hugged her close, his heart full to bursting. "No, Lena, thank you. You've made my life so much brighter." As they embraced, Lena caught a glimpse of Ms. Taylor and Ms. Green, both clapping for her. She even saw Officer Thompson by the door, giving a thumbs up. So many people who had cared, who had helped to turn the tide of her life from sorrow to joy, were here to celebrate. Eventually, Nathaniel stood and took Lena's hand. Together, father and daughter walked out of the courtroom into the bright spring day, ready to begin their new life. Justice had been served. Gordon Baker was behind bars where he could hurt no one, and Lena had gained not only safety, but a family filled with love. Summer had arrived gently in the small Pennsylvania town. In the early morning light, Lena skipped barefoot across the dew-kissed grass of their backyard. She knelt by a flower bed to water the marigolds she and Nathaniel had planted. Bright golden blooms flourishing where once there was barren soil. Nathaniel watched from the porch, coffee mug in hand and contentment in his eyes. "Those flowers are looking beautiful, Lena," he called. She beamed up at him. "They're growing really fast. I think they like it here." Nathaniel smiled, knowing the sentiment applied as much to the girl as to her plants. In the months since the adoption, Lena had flourished. The shadows under her eyes were gone, replaced by a sparkle that warmed his heart every time he saw it. She laughed often now, a bright musical sound that filled their home with joy. Nightmares had gradually given way to peaceful dreams, especially after Nathaniel painted her bedroom a soft lavender and filled it with books and stuffed animals. Love and safety had worked wonders on her wounded spirit. Lena set down her watering can and joined Nathaniel on the porch swing. She snuggled close to his side, and he wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Dad?" Lena said softly, testing the word as she often did. She'd started using it more naturally, and each time Nathaniel's heart swelled. "Yes, sweetheart?" She looked up at him with earnest, thoughtful eyes. "Do you think there are other kids, like how I was? Kids who are scared and don't have anyone to help them?" Nathaniel's chest tightened. "There are, unfortunately. But there are people trying to help them, like Ms. Green, and teachers like Ms. Taylor, and police like Officer Thompson." Lena nodded, fiddling with a loose thread on her shorts. "But I was thinking, maybe we could help too. Like, maybe I could talk to those kids somehow, so they won't feel so alone or scared to tell." Nathaniel felt a surge of pride and emotion. He gently turned the swing so he could face her directly. "That's a very brave idea, Lena." She shrugged modestly. I know what it's like to be afraid. If I could tell other kids that it can get better, that someone will listen." She trailed off, eyes shining with the purpose forming in her young mind. Nathaniel nodded, his own eyes misting as he cupped her cheek. "I think that's wonderful. In fact, I have an idea." He had been pondering for a while how he could give back, how he and Lena together might make a difference. What if we start something, like a group or organization that can speak up for kids in bad situations? We could share your story, if you're comfortable, to raise awareness. We could call it Lena's Voice, because your voice is what made all the difference. You hanging on and finally being heard. Lena's face lit up. "Lena's Voice," she repeated, tasting the words. "I like that." We could help teachers and neighbors learn the signs of abuse, raise money for shelters and programs. Whatever we can do to make sure no child feels as alone as you did. Lena threw her arms around Nathaniel in an impromptu hug. "Let's do it," she exclaimed. Then, pulling back slightly, she added, "But only if you help." "I can't do it alone." He chuckled and hugged her back. "Oh, I'll be right beside you, my dear. We're a team." The sun was rising higher now, bathing them in golden light as they sat on the porch swing with their arms around each other. For Lena, every new day still felt a bit like a miracle. She had a home, a family, and now a future shining with hope. Resting her head against Nathaniel's shoulder, Lena closed her eyes and smiled. "I love you, Dad," she whispered. Nathaniel kissed the top of her head gently. "I love you too, Lena." In the quiet peace of that summer morning, they swayed together on the swing, already imagining the lives they might help and the changes they would fight for. The long darkness of Lena's past had given way to a new dawn, one filled with love, purpose, and the warm glow of a better tomorrow. 2 years later, the Pinewood Community Center buzzed with excitement. Bright balloons and a banner reading "Grand Opening Lena's Voice Foundation" decorated the hall. Town officials, teachers, police officers, and families milled about, chatting and finding seats. At the front of the room stood Lena and Nathaniel, side by side, at a podium adorned with a microphone and a bouquet of lilies. Lena, now 10 years old, smoothed the skirt of her yellow dress nervously. She felt Nathaniel's reassuring hand on her shoulder and glanced up at him. He nodded, smiling. They were both a little nervous. Today, they would speak in front of a crowd about their new foundation. But it was a good kind of nervous. In the front row sat the many people who had helped save Lena: Ms. Taylor, Ms. Green, Officer Thompson, all beaming with pride. Nathaniel stepped to the microphone first. His voice carried warmly through the room. "Thank you all for being here. Today is very special for us, for my daughter Lena, and for me." He paused, his eyes finding Lena's. "Out of a very dark time in Lena's life, we have worked together to create something bright and hopeful. We call it Lena's Voice, because it was Lena's courage and voice that brought us here." The audience applauded warmly. Nathaniel went on to describe the Foundation's mission, ensuring no child would feel alone or unheard, and providing support and advocacy to those in need. He turned toward Lena, pride shining on his face. "And now, I'd like to introduce the bravest person I know, my daughter, Lena Grayson." Lena took a small breath and moved closer to the microphone. Nathaniel stayed by her side, his arm lightly around her back. The room fell respectfully silent as the young girl gathered her confidence. "Thank you," Lena began, her voice clear and steady. 2 years ago, I was very scared and very hurt. I thought I didn't matter and that no one would ever hear me." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd of caring faces. "But I was wrong. People did hear me. My teacher, Ms. Taylor, heard me. The police heard me. And my new dad, Nathaniel, heard me." Nathaniel felt a tear slip down his cheek, unashamed. Lena smiled softly. "Because they listened, I got safe. And now I'm happy. I never want any other kid to feel like nobody's listening. That's why we started Lena's Voice, so kids who are hurting can get help, like I did." The crowd erupted in applause, and even a few tears, rising in a standing ovation. Lena stepped back into Nathaniel's embrace, relieved and glowing with pride. Together, they held a big pair of scissors and cut through a ribbon stretched across the stage, officially opening Lena's Voice Foundation. The room filled with cheers. As people began to mingle and congratulate them, Nathaniel hugged Lena and whispered, "Your voice is going to help so many, sweetheart." Lena hugged him back tightly. In the embrace of her father and surrounded by the love of her community, she felt a profound sense of peace and accomplishment. Her journey from a frightened, silent child to a confident girl speaking out for others had come full circle. Good was rewarded, evil punished, and hope now stood where despair once had been. Lena's voice, once silenced by fear, now rang out brightly, carrying the promise of lasting healing and change for others who needed it. And that, truly, was the happiest ending she could have ever imagined. Lena's life didn't change because of magic. It changed because of courage. Her own courage, and the kindness of a stranger who chose not to look away. This story reminds me that sometimes all it takes is one person to reach out, one voice to speak up, and a child's entire world can begin to heal. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt small, like your voice doesn't matter, remember Lena. She was silent once, afraid. She thought no one would care. But then someone did, and everything changed. As adults, we may not always realize it, but a warm glance, a gentle question, can become a lifeline for a hurting child. Let's keep our hearts open and our eyes aware, because maybe, just maybe, your kindness will be the one thing that saves someone from falling. And to the dear women out there, especially those who've seen many seasons of life, I wonder, are you sipping a warm cup of tea as you listen? Is your heart feeling light? Or perhaps a little tender today? Do you remember a time when someone simply needed a hug? I hope this story brought you comfort. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to speak up, to reach out, to bring healing. Let's hold on to the quiet truth that goodness still exists in this world, as long as we don't turn away from someone else's pain.